Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the home of racing for so many fans. How many of us grew up listening to the Indy 500 on the radio? Well, these drivers get a chance to race here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway at the 2021 edition of the SCCA National Championship Runoffs, the National Championship of Amateur Road Racing in the United States. Welcome to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway on a beautiful late summer afternoon. My name's John Phipp, and I'm here with Tom O'Gorman, and down in the pits is Hayward Wagner, as we're going to bring you Touring 2, one of the races that we always look forward to. These touring classes are always so tightly contested, and the thing I like about it is the variety of cars that we see in this, Tom.
The variety and the relatability. These are very much not modified. These are cars you could go buy off the showroom floor, or at least could in the last 20 to 15 years, and drive on the street. And they're prepped very much in a similar way to the way you would prep them for the track if you were taking them to a track day or a track night in America, something like that. These cars are basically just a little bit further than that with safety equipment, and then we go racing. They're a lot of fun to watch.
Exactly right. And we've got 26 cars on the starting grid that will take the green flag here for this 19-lap or 40-minute race, whichever comes first. And we've got some contenders in the field at the sharp edge of the field, as we would suspect, but a couple contenders a little deeper in the pack that we might want to watch coming up as well. You can see down on the grid, we have got all 26 cars lined up. And before we send it down to Hayward, let's have a quick look at this race course. 2.6 miles, 14 turns. Track map, of course, presented by Mazda. Tom, take us through a lap.
We're running the a very fast and flowy version of the multiple layouts that are available here at Indy Motor Speedway. Sector 1 is the longest on the track, includes the 2 longest straightaways as well. That's down the front straight into the heavy braking zone at turns 1 and 2. These are big, heavy cars. They're going to be on the brakes for a long time into turn 1, then flat out through turn 3, but a pretty heavy braking zone at this point in turn 4. Maybe even a crack of the throttle for turn 5 before we sweep through turn 6 and 6A onto the Holman straight. Then we run the fast version of turn 7 into the S's at turns 8, 9, and 10. Big weight transfer in these cars. We're looking at into turn 8 from turn 9 right here on the camera behind the track map. Then we get back up onto the banking through turn 11 into another braking zone. The final braking zone, perhaps the final passing opportunity at turn 12 before finally completing the lap at 13 and 14.
Thanks to Mazda for presenting the track map. Mazda's investment in club racing goes beyond just the track map presentation. If you race a Mazda, no matter the model or year, they support you through the Mazda Team Support Program. Sign up at MazdaMotorsports.com. As you can see, this beautiful group of cars down on the false grid, and down there amongst them is the third member of our broadcast team, Hayward Wagner. Hayward, are you down there? Not quite ready. Sorry, Hayward's not quite ready for us. My bad. I should have waited on that cue, and I didn't. Nonetheless, starting on the tire rack pole, Kurt Rezzetano out of Phoenixville, Pennsylvania, a 2-time winner, most recently in 2016. He's eligible for the Super Sweep, and he is also Sports Car's pick to take this win in his Ford Mustang. Charlie Peter in the 66 out of Olathe, Kansas, in the Kansas City region, in the BMW M235IR. Those two cars couldn't be more different.
No.
And Charlie Peter in the second spot. Mark Bowden, the 4-time and defending champion, also a pick by Sports Car Magazine to finish on the box. Mark Bowden, the major domo of the Fall Line Motorsports operation out of Buffalo Grove, Illinois, races out of the Chicago region. Those 3 drivers, all better than the lap record set here by John Buttermore back in 2017.
And this will be a lot of fun to watch because it takes until we get to 7th before we have a repeat make and model on the starting grid. We have Mustang GT, BMW M235i Racing. That is a factory-built race car that we'll talk about. Then a 997 Porsche 911, C5Z06 Viper SRT 10, and an E92 M3, the V8 model. So it's a big variety of cars, as you mentioned in the intro, and we're going to see who can complete 19 laps the best, because we already know who's fastest around 1, but that doesn't mean everything.
Some of these cars heavier than others. They got to be a little more careful about tires. We've got front engine and, of course, the rear or mid engine Porsche 997s in the race as well. who do you like better? Does the Porsche have the advantage in tire management, or do they have to be as careful with their rear tires as the big heavy Mustangs have to be with all four?
Well, they are the lightest car, are the Porsches, but they are also, interestingly, all within about 500 pounds of each other. So some of these cars are running with ballast. Some of the cars are actually allowed to lighten the cars up just a little bit. And they also have different levels of aerodynamics happening. Some cars can run some bolt-on aerodynamics. Some cars have to run their factory bodies. So I think the cars that are a little bit lighter with a little bit more of that aero help are going to be good here at Indy on the longer runs. Because this track is so kind of long radius corners, very flat, very wide, you're going to need some longevity, but you're also going to need some experience. And Kurt Rezzetano, while he is driving a heavier car, the Ford Mustang on the pole, I think is 3,600 pounds by minimum weight, he's got a lot of experience in managing a car like that. And if you're good at managing it, it doesn't matter how big it is.
Exactly right. Let's introduce the starters to you, as we've got 26 cars about ready to take the green flag, as you can see them rolling out of the false grid and on their formation lap. As we mentioned, Kurt Rezzetano, your pole sitter, Charlie Peter alongside in second. Mark Bowden will start inside of row 2. Outside of him is the 73 of David Sanders out of Malvern, Pennsylvania, and the Philadelphia region in another Phoenix-prepared Chevy Corvette. Scotty B. White, veteran campaigner in the Zero car out of Auburn, Washington in the Northwest region. He is in a Dodge Viper SRT. Ali Saleh and the number 101 out of Stillwater, Oklahoma in the Ohio region in a BMW E92 M3. Joe Bowden, the son of Mark Bowden, finished on the podium with his dad a year ago in the 45 car out of Winnetka, Illinois in the Chicago region in a fall line Porsche 997. Joe Koenig, next to him in row 4 out of Glenville, Illinois, also the Chicago region. Hoosier Fall Line and Trimtex sponsor his BMW E92 M3. Row 5 has the 42 of Michael Levine out of Hoxett, New Hampshire in the New England region, a Ford Mustang GT. Next to him, the 72 of Brian LaCroix out of Hyannis, Massachusetts in the New England region in a Chevy Corvette C6. Row 6, the 144 of Tim Kesman out of Franksville, Wisconsin, and the Milwaukee region. Tim is also Super Suite eligible, and he has the endorsement, should we say, of Sports Car Magazine to pick to be on the pole in a fall line Porsche 996. Nathan Martin is the winner of the Hawk Breakthrough Performance Award. That's for the driver who made up the most positions between day 1 and day 2 of qualifying. Nathan picked up 10 spots between Tuesday and Wednesday. He's out of Westminster, Colorado in a BMW M2. Scott Synott is in 13th position out of Esco, Minnesota in the Land O'Lakes region in a BMW 235i. Alan Kossoff out of Prospect Hills, Illinois in the Chicago region in a Porsche 996. Car 3 is Matthew O'Toole from Willamette, Illinois in the Chicago region in a Porsche Carrero 997.2. Outside of him in row 8 is the 120 of Patrick Womack from Burr Ridge, Illinois in the Chicago region in a BMW Z4. In row 9, the 78 of Alder Clancy out of Duluth, Minnesota in the Land O'Lakes region in a BMW 235i. The 63 of Bill Collins from Inner Grove Heights, Minnesota in the Land O'Lakes region in a Chevy Corvette. In the 10th row, car 149, that's Gregory Shermer out of Davenport, Iowa in the Great Rivers region in a Porsche 997. And the 18 of Aaron Kaplan out of Evanston, Illinois in the Chicago region in a BMW E92. Row 11, the 47 of Josh Byington from Somerville, Mass in the New England region in a BMW E46. And Larry Brady in the 58 out of Olathe, Kansas in the Kansas City region in a Corvette C5. In the 12th row, car 14, Scott Sewell out of Fort Worth, Texas and the Texas region. That's a Porsche Cayman. And the 147 of Mikhail Butenko out of San Francisco, California, and the San Francisco region in a Ford Mustang GT. In the final row, Casey McLeod in the 22, also in a Ford Mustang GT out of Diamond Springs, California. And the 26, bringing up the rear, is the 34 of Tom O'Toole from Willamette, Illinois in a BMW M235IR. There's your front row, the 37 of Kurt Rezzetano, the 66 of Charlie Peter.
Now Charlie Peter in the V6 with a turbo. This car may be the least powerful on the grid. Watch for Scotty B. White from the 3rd row. That convertible Viper had the fastest trap speeds all of qualifying. Look at him go.
Green flag is out. A good jump from Rezzetano as he spools up that turbo and is on his way down the front straightaway. Charlie Peter giving chase, but they're going to go 3 wide. The 48 of Mark, or 46 of Mark Bowden right in there, and then steaming down the inside and taking the shortcut. I believe that's the 45 of Joe Bowden. He had to give that pace back, as you can see him off in the grass. because that would definitely have been a penalty.
Yeah, he had a massive head of steam, but unfortunately wasn't able to do anything with it. If he'd have nailed his braking point, he might have moved all the way up into a podium contention spot, but now we'll slip back as you see the fall line liveries littering this entire field. There's a massive representation here. Kurt Rezzetano using the experience to break away at the beginning over Charlie Peter, who salvaged what was not a great jump back up into second.
David Sanders in that yellow 73 Corvette flying up through the field. That's another Phoenix prepared car as he works his way through 6A and onto the Holman Straight. He's back in 6th position right now as we see the 40 car ducking to the inside. 46, I should say, of Mark Bowden. Ducking to the inside, not able to make anything happen.
Oh, you see the weight management of these cars as they're sorting themselves out through the S's through turns 7, 8, 9, and 10. The weight just rolling as they're kind of awkwardly navigating through the traffic and the course itself. Look at the 144 of Tim Kesman. He came all the way from 11th to be running 4th right now in that white Porsche. You see he's got a little bit of aero bolted onto that car. It's an older version of the 911, the 996. He gets to run a lighter weight as well as that aero, and it tends to be a very fast package. Now he slices up the inside of Mark Bowden, the 46. They're side by side again.
Just in front of them, the 66 of Charlie Peter is in that BMW as he hangs on to that second spot, but only by the slightest of margins, with Mark Bowden right behind him. Rezzetano and Tim Kesman, who made that great jump up to 4th spot, are both eligible for the Super Sweep if they win today.
Peter protecting to the inside, but look at Scotty B. White trying to make another run in the Viper in the background. He's going to have to slot back in and brake nice and early. Whoa, Ali Salah is in too deep. They go contact in between 3 cars.
Salah hits the 144 of Kesman and the 46 of Bowden and takes himself out as well.
So that's 3 of our podium contenders now have suffered issues in the beginning of this race. The BMW way too big a head of steam, maybe distracted with the Corvette in the background, goes to the brakes far too late. And unfortunately takes not 1 but 2 Porsches with. And I think Tim Kesman was going to be a car to watch. I believe a defending podium finisher, maybe even a national champion. I can't remember specifically, but heartbreaking for both of those cars. There's another spinner, the 45. I think that's Joe Bowden having more issues.
Kesman finished 3rd at VIR. He is still looking for his first national championship. As we see the 45 car getting spun, we're getting a replay of that. And again, getting some help as the 72 Corvette comes steaming down inside. David Sanders.
And that unfortunately cut the left rear tire when they made contact. So 45, Joe Bowden's going to have to hit the pit lane. If they have some spares on the pit lane, he'll be able to continue. But all of that mess has given this man, the 37, Kurt Rezzetano, what looked to be a good breakaway, a very, very, very comfortable lead. Not another car in sight in his mirrors.
Yeah, about a half a lap lead for Kurt Rezzetano as he is well out in front in that turbo Mustang. There you can see the battle for 2nd and 3rd. 72 of Brian LaCroix.
Man, look at the back of...
73, excuse me. That's David Sanders.
I was going to say, look at the back of Charlie Peters' car, looking like he's struggling with power down in that BMW M235. And I think he, again, doesn't have necessarily the most powerful car, but that is a factory-built race car. You buy that car from BMW the way it sits, and as long as you meet the SCCA spec line, it is good. Now, he doesn't protect to the inside. David Sanders shows the nose, but the BMW has the brakes.
Yeah, a little better on the brakes, apparently. Sanders thought about trying a braking duel there at turn 1, but then thought better of it and fell back in single file. Scotty B. White back in 4th spot in that Viper with some tremendous straight line speed. So as these guys line up together and maybe start battling one another, Scotty B. will have the opportunity to run them down as they work their way through turn number 5 down into 6.
And it's always easier to pass someone in a straight line than it is in a corner. So if you have the top speed, it's good to have. To give you an idea, Scotty B. White's trap speeds, that means the fastest speed he did that lap, 150.6 miles per hour. Our leader, Kurt Rezzetano, only 142. That's 8 miles an hour advantage to the Viper.
Rezzetano so far out in front. On the last lap, it was almost 6 seconds. I'm sure it's more than that now. As there is Scotty B. White in that 0 Viper. A little wide of the apex there, but
makes up for it there. Takes that apex and more.
Exactly right. That car is nicely stuck to the ground. It is handling the curbs very well indeed.
Barely onto the track there, but you can see that this car is either a 3rd or 4th gen Viper. It came as a convertible, running kind of that open top. Because the car didn't come with a convertible top or a hard top from the factory, they're not allowed to run one here, so you have that exposed roll cage. It's not hurting his straight line speed, though. Ooh, the 70, the fall line car with a little bit of body damage in deep into 12.
Nathan Martin just in front of him in the 146 out of Westminster, Colorado. Remember Nathan, the winner of the Hawk Breakthrough Performer Award. Nathan, currently running in 5th spot. Joe Koenig in the 70, just behind him. The 92 out of Glenville, Illinois. As we've got a yellow flag being shown here at the braking zone for turn 1, and again, that's for the 2 cars off in that last instance, so no passing in turn 1 for the moment. But they're handling it with a local yellow as we're working race lap 5.
You can see just how well these cars handle the curbs, both the big mound of curbs that are at the apex of some of the more tight hairpins like turns 1 and 12, but also those more flat ridged curbs, just running them over straight into the grass almost like we saw Scotty B. White do. And this race is not going anywhere between Charlie Peter in the 66 and the yellow Corvette of David Sanders. Sanders is just hounding the BMW, but doesn't seem to really know what to do to get by just yet.
Charlie Peter was 2nd at Road America a year ago, so that's where he lies in this race as well. Sanders right behind him in that yellow Corvette, still looking for his first podium at the Runoffs. His best finish, a 4th in 2018 at Sonoma.
It's a good look at the 120 of Patrick Womack using the curb to hook the car through turn number 7, but that car is up from 16th all the way to 8th. He's cut the field in half from where he started in that WeatherTech BMW. These cars tend to be very slippery in a straight line. They're pretty quick, but also a nice handling chassis. He's found his way due to attrition, but also due to good choices and good driving all the way up into the top 10 now.
Yeah, that's the only Z4 in the field, and he is certainly in the running for the Sunoco Hard Charger Award, which is given to the driver who makes up the most positions between his qualifying position and his race finish. Sunoco, of course, the official fuel of the SCCA. And he's having a pretty dandy battle there with the 72 of Brian LaCroix in that black Corvette C6 as they come onto the front straightaway. We turn our attention back to the 2nd place battle. Charlie Peters' car looking a little squirrely on the brakes. He was right at the threshold there. As you can see that car sashaying just a bit as he got it rode down. I think at the moment, Sanders is, I think, content to stay there, to see what develops.
I can't tell. It looks like the 73 may have a little bit of target fixation. You see he's driving right up to the rear bumper of the 66, that white and black BMW, but he's not really showing his nose anywhere, not really trying to get by. He just looks like he's trying to get nice and close and stay there. I don't know if maybe he could move his eyes around a little bit and find another way by, or if he's just going to try to run the tires off of that BMW, which you would think is among the lighter cars, but really is not that different. Only 25 pounds different minimum weight between these 2 cars on screen.
For folks who don't know what target fixation is, tell us a little bit about it. That's basically driving the car in front of you instead of driving your own.
Exactly. So right here, rather than looking into the corner, the 73 car might be just staring at the brake lights of the BMW behind, and you can often see that by looking at the trajectory of the car from behind. If you're driving straight at the car from behind, you're probably looking at it. If you're driving into the corner well, you're probably looking at the corner. And it's hard to tell from outside, but sometimes you can tell that body language. And the Corvette looks like he's maybe struggling with that just a little bit. But I also agree with you that the 66 is looking pretty squirrely, not only in the braking zones, but in the corners too.
Look at the lead Rezzetano's built up. It's up to 7.5 seconds. But this battle for 2nd may well be the best battle on the racetrack for the silver and the bronze medal as it stands right now. But we're still only 6 laps into this 19-lap affair, so there is plenty of racing left to go. And as we get deeper into the race, and again, ambient temperatures coming up as we've got another spin. That's the 3 car of Matthew O'Toole out of Willamette, Illinois, and one of the many fall line liveried cars here in this field. Doesn't look like he hit anything. As we're going to get a replay. That looked to be right at turn 12. There he is on the brakes, and I think this was all by himself.
I think it was. Maybe puts the power down.
A little too much curb, yeah. And around it went. And once it gets off in the grass, you're going nowhere fast. But he's back in contention.
No harm, no foul. Meanwhile, towards the front, Scotty B. White runs the fastest lap of the race. That isn't Kurt Rezzetano. That means he's actually gaining on Charlie Peter and David Sanders as these two have this second place battle. The convertible Viper SRT10 in the background. It's not super close yet, but he is quicker to the tune of a couple of tenths. So if he can chip that away over the next math is hard, 7 laps or so. No, I lied, 13 laps or so. I proved my point. then he might actually get there.
Scotty B in that Dodge Viper SRT10 out of Auburn, Washington. And you can see the two fall line BMWs right behind him. Nathan Martin in that 146, Joe Koenig in the 70. Martin's is an M2, Koenig's is an M3. There's a good look at the Viper of Scotty B. White. And I am just really impressed with how well that car is riding the curbs. I mean, it gets over the curbs, it doesn't seem to be upset at all.
Yeah, it is nice and flat. These cars also have incredibly long gearing. The first gear, I think, goes to something like 70 miles an hour. Second gear closer to 95. So Scotty B. White's doing a lot less shifting. If you hear the car on the audio feed underneath our voices, you can hear it just kind of sounds like it's chugging along. And that's because he's in every gear for a very long time. He might only be using fourth, and he's got 2 more to go. So that car's got plenty of that straight line speed, but you're right, the corner looks great too.
Scotty B. is one of 2 drivers in the field with more than 30 runoff starts. He has 34. Mark Bowden has 32. Bowden, unfortunately, no longer in the running after being taken out in that early instant. But Scotty B. also has the record of the drivers in this field, at least, tied with 2 other drivers for the most fast laps of the race. As we have another off, the 78 car going a little too deep into turn 12.
There are a handful of cars involved in that, actually, but I missed the other numbers. We have a replay of it. Looks like more cars involved as Joe Bowden charging up the inside. It happened in front of him, though.
Yeah, Clancy was the one who spun.
I missed the other car. There were 2 yellow cars involved, but you're right. It was Klatsky that ended up turned, and the yellow car in front maybe helped him get a little bit of that.
Yeah, there was some side-to-side contact there for sure. Looks like Charlie Peters maybe beginning to eke out a little bit of an advantage as he has opened up a bit of a gap over David Sanders. And there's Scotty B. White just getting ever so bit closer. About 2 seconds now, the interval between Sanders and White at the last lap, 2.3 to be exact. And a pretty good battle here, just a little further back. As we've got the 42 car of Michael Levine and Alan Kossoff in the number 2 Porsche right behind him. It's the battle for 9th and 10th.
Just in front of them, there was a change of position down the front straightaway last lap. Look at this BMW. He's actually on the charge right now. That is Patrick Womack. He made a pass on Brian LaCroix in that black Corvette the lap before. Now makes a pass on Joe Koenig in that blue and black BMW. So the Z4 is on quite the charge up towards the top 5. Can set his sights on Nathan Martin, who is there in the 146, the other black and blue BMW. Struggling with power down. The Z4M looks great.
Yeah, absolutely looks great. He is picking him up and laying him down onto the front straightaway now with Nathan Martin in his sights. Joe Koenig showing a little damage to the left rear of his machine. Looks like the BMW may be pulling just a little more down the straight. He's probably got a little more motor, but the Z4 definitely handy in the turns. As he is hard on the brakes down into turn number 1. Koenig staying right there with him. This is the section where I think you're going to see the Z4 squirt away just a little bit.
Ooh, big wiggle on power down for the 120, that Z4M. Flat 6 power to that car, rear wheel drive, of course, and then the V8, big high revving. Big wiggle again. Maybe the 120 starting to use his tires up in all those moves he's been making.
As he had to work his way up through the field, started back in 16th position. And once again, the driver definitely in contention for the Sunoco Hard Charger out of Burr Ridge, Illinois. Right on the back of Nathan Martin, but coming into a section where Martin will probably have the advantage with that big high revving V8. But not so fast. Womack staying right in his shadow, taking advantage of the draft. You can see that car getting a little squirrely on the brakes as well.
And that's what I love about these touring classes, because the cars are not that modified. You really wheel them. You got to use the weight to your advantage. You got to move the car across the surface, use the slip angle just a little bit, and it looks so much fun to do. You can just see all of them. They all have their own personalities as they kind of roll through the corners, but the car to watch right now is that white WeatherTech number 120. I really think that Patrick Womack has something to keep this race going for himself, maybe get himself into the top 5.
Yeah, if he can keep the tires under it, I think that's the only issue that he's got to be careful of, is we're not even to half distance yet, as we will be at the end of this lap. As here comes.
Oh, change of position. Look at Scotty B. White is now in front of David Sanders. We don't know how it happened, but
Sanders is fading, it appears.
Yeah.
Let's check a lap time here on Sanders last time by. A 56.6, and Scotty B. White a 52.3. So Sanders' best lap a 150. So he's 6 seconds off the pace. He either had an incident or he's got a problem. So Scotty B. White now up into 3rd spot. And he's got some traffic between he and Charlie Peter in 2nd. And here's Sanders. We'll keep an eye on him to see if there's anything obviously wrong with that yellow Phoenix Corvette.
You can see with the way the cars move and the way you have to drive them, it is a somewhat more high-risk, high-reward driving style, and with that higher risk comes mistakes, and maybe David Sanders just made a simple mistake. As you can see, he's really throwing that yellow Corvette around. There's another Corvette on our screen that I believe is some lap traffic. The number, I missed the number, Bill Collins. I believe. Yep, so he's going to pull out of the way. Nice heads-up driving between the two. But Sanders, I'm assuming, just had a big slide and unfortunately lost a spot from it, lost a podium spot from it.
Womack and Martin going after it once again down into turn 7. Womack right on his bumper, as close as we've seen him. Into the S's they come. As Womack battling Nathan Martin for 5th spot. Again, Martin able to use the superior torque of that V8 to pull away. But here comes Womack getting a good run. Pinches off turn 10, he's down to the inside. Through 11, he's got it done. Let's see if he can hold on to it as they come down into the braking zone for turn 12. And he does. Patrick Womack looks like he's going to take over a top 5 position. Now that he's in clear air, let's see if he can get away.
Remember, we saw that issue for Sanders. He's next on the list for Patrick Womack at this point, and it's a pretty big gap, but he's going to start to drive away immediately.
While we're waiting on this to resolve itself, let's just take a quick step aside and thank our folks from Mazda.
Why race? Because it's in our blood. A love of driving that pushes us as hard on the road as it does on the track. It's why we reinvented the Roadster and put a piece of it into every car we make. It's why we refine, rethink, and refine again. And it's why we'll always engineer to your heart's BPM, not simply an engine's RPM. Why race? Why indeed?
When the finish line calls, we answer. Hit the road with insurance protection from Hagerty. Whether you drive a built racer, sports car, or exotic, and save an average of $264. Get a quote today at Hagerty.com.
Welcome to that magic realm. Between here and there, a no man's land, and everyone's land, where great expectations grow, and rewards are given to the swift, the perceptive, and the daring. Introducing the Mazda CX-30 Turbo with all-wheel drive, more power for your pursuit.
Welcome back to Hagerty Race Day at the 58th running of the SCCA National Championship Runoffs. As we've got some changing going on in the top 5. Brian LaCroix in that number 72 Corvette, just outside the top 5, currently running in 8th spot. He's got Joe Koenig in his sights just in front of him. Koenig working at a little bit of a disadvantage with some damage to that left rear corner, which is probably adding a little bit of drag as they work their way onto the front straightaway. Meanwhile, Kurt Rezzetano leading from the pole by a bunch, 11-second lead for the pole sitter. Charlie Peter in 2nd, and another 5 seconds back to Scotty B. White, who has taken over the 3rd spot and stretching it away. And here comes the 70 of Koenig, and he's all over the 2 of Alan Kossoff.
Kossoff is a car on the move right now. He had made his way past Michael Levine in the Mustang a couple of laps ago and now finds himself in front of that E92 V8 M3 of Joe Koenig. He's going to set his sights forward and was among the faster cars on the track the last couple of laps through. That big V8 BMW has slipped a couple. Now we're looking at the BMW M2. This is a turbo 6-cylinder BMW with a similar livery. On the heavy defense rule from the 72, who goes for a big slide into turn number 6 of Brian LaCroix, the black Corvette.
LaCroix chasing down Nathan Martin, the winner of our Hawk Breakthrough Performance Award for picking up the most positions in qualifying between the day 1 and day 2. Picked up 10 spots. Meanwhile, the 120 car, Patrick Womack, who we were talking about just before the break, has been able to solidify his hold on 5th spot. And checking his lap times, he's not quite as quick as David Sanders in front of him. So I don't know if he's going to be able to run him down and do a battle for 4th. Those two separated by almost 8 seconds right now. But this battle is a dandy. Nathan Martin in that brilliantly liveried number 146 BMW. And the 72 of Brian LaCroix out of Hyannis, Massachusetts.
Ooh, the 146 a little bit deep into turn 12, misses the apex and struggles to get the power back down. It looks like these turbo 6-cylinder BMWs, both the M2 and the M235s, are really quick in a straight line, but struggle with getting off the corners just a little bit, while the bigger tires on the black Corvette or rear are helping him get off the corners, but he's struggling to do anything with it. Look who's coming, Alan Kossoff in the number 2. That gray Porsche is getting ever closer to this battle.
Yeah, you would expect the turbo car to have a little bit of lag getting power down, that the normally aspirated Corvette would be a little better, have a little more torque, especially at low RPM, so that may be playing into the advantage of the 72 of LaCroix. But you're right, the 2 car not going away quietly. Alan Kossoff chasing him down in that Performance Euro Works Porsche 996.
We speculated at the top of the show that the slightly lighter, maybe a little bit more aero help cars might just do better in this longer run. And Alan Kossoff is a perfect example of that. Look at the 146 slide through turn 5, stays flat out, keeps the foot in it, but leaves 11s all the way through, and then misses turn 6 just a little bit. The 72 gets alongside, but he shuts the door, does the BMW.
Kossoff started all the way back in 14th position, so he's another driver in the running for the Sunoco Hard Charger Award, in addition to Patrick Womack in that white BMW Z4 just going out of your frame. But yeah, this has turned into a pretty dandy battle here with Martin, then the 72 of LaCroix, with Kossoff right behind him. And Kossoff appears to be the quickest of the bunch.
He's definitely the quickest of the bunch in clear air, but the question is if he can find his way through. Whoa, the 72 big save, tank slaps off the track. Kossoff has to go for an evasive maneuver and ends up in the grass.
Keeps his foot in it and only loses 1 position at the moment. But I think that's going to be Michael Levine in the 42 Mustang getting around him.
Just saw one of the fall line Porsches, I think, come through as well, and I think it's the number 3 of Matthew O'Toole.
Yeah. We get the replay here as we saw the 72 of LaCroix.
And this is simply just tire degradation. The car gets the tires so hot, he has to do a little bit of a dodge on the 146 ahead and then just can't get grip. Goes for a bit of a slide.
But Kossoff, the one who lost out, as he's lost a couple spots now. As Joe Koenig takes over the 8th spot, Kossoff back to 9th. Once again, the 72 looking racy as LaCroix going to try one more time on Nathan Martin. He's tried to stuff it inside there at turn 10, and in lieu of making contact with Martin, he backed out of it, and that's what caused him to spin, or really spin. Kossoff had to take evasive action.
Yeah, both of these cars showing signs of serious tire fall off. We saw coming out of turn 2 a couple of corners ago, Nathan Martin in the 146 had a big slowdown trying to gather the car up, and now another massive slide for Brian LaCroix coming onto the back straightaway. He had to do another evasive move. He's got more apex speed, but he can't do anything with it because of the 146 in front of him, and now is under attack from the 70. The V8 BMW is back.
That Porsche behind Joe Koenig is Joe Borden, but he is a lap down. So he is not in this fight, although he is on the pace. Once again, he's going to try to stuff it in there in turn 10. And this time gets it done. LaCroix takes over the spot from Nathan Martin. So that moves him up to 6th. Martin now coming under pressure from his teammate, Joe Koenig.
That was a great move. He learned his lesson from the lap before. If he wanted the position, he had to get there fully alongside, and this lap he did. Again, that blue Porsche in the background is a lap down, but it's certainly faster than these cars around him. He's just got to be a little bit respectful of their fight. The car behind him, the silver Porsche, is in this battle, so he wants to get through.
Yeah, and he's made up all the ground that he lost. Remember, he had to take evasive action off into the grass at the outside of turn 10 a lap ago. And he has made up all the ground that he lost. those BMWs do have some grunt down the straightaway, don't they? Here comes Joe Borden trying to unlap himself, at least from Joe Koenig, as he stuffs it down the inside.
Now Alan Kossoff has someone to pass for position in Joe Koenig. The 70 BMW is under attack from the number 2 Porsche. I think Joe Bowden maybe just realized that he was kind of interrupting a battle and pulls to the side. Maybe he'll just cruise behind for a little bit. Some good heads-up driving, or he had another issue with the car after that flat tire earlier on.
Yeah, could be his dad went off track right down there. Maybe he got it on the radio and said, hey, let these guys by. We got some fall line cars going for position here. That was quite a moment last year at Road America when the Bowdens shared the podium. And I know, as we can see, down to the inside, it runs over a piece of debris.
Oh, yeah. Maybe some damage to that car. Perhaps cut another tire. It's hard to say. It looks like it's okay.
Yeah, I think he just pulled aside to let the battle go by. That's my guess. Yeah, I think it showed some good sportsmanship there. But Mark and his son Joe sharing the podium at Road America last year at the runoffs. There's Kossoff once again right on the tail of Joe Koenig. He's had to pass him 2 or 3 times in this race, and for whatever reason has fallen back behind.
To give you an idea, the number 2 Porsche, that silver car at the back, is actually as fast as our 2nd place car on track, or 3rd place, I should say, Scotty B. White. He's just unfortunately mired in 9th with what looks to be not the greatest race car, meaning it doesn't have the speed in the same way as the other cars around it, and it's kind of stuck behind these very fast in a straight line BMWs of both Martin and Martin and Koenig.
And there goes Joe Borden into the pits, realizing he's not going to score points in this one. As we watch Alan Kossoff try to get some clear air, see if he can get down the inside of Koenig. Koenig making up some ground on Nathan Martin. Again, those 2 BMWs, different power plants, but we haven't talked much about our leader, Kurt Rezzetano, because he's in a different zip code. 12.5 seconds out in front of Charlie Peter, who in turn is about 9 seconds out in front of Scotty B. White. So the closest battle is between Scotty B. White and the yellow number 73 Corvette of David Sanders, but even that is about a 2-second difference, with Womack all the way another 13 seconds back, further back in 5th. So this one really spread out around this 2.6-mile racetrack.
Yeah, it certainly has. And while we may not have a lot of side-by-side action, the lap traffic makes it a tense moment for our leader. This is really intense moments for especially drivers like Scotty B. White and David Sanders, who can still see each other on track. Yes, they're 2 seconds apart. They may not be door handle to door handle, but they have to be picture perfect. Meanwhile, Charlie Peter has found himself nice and lonely, which is probably a little bit more peaceful, but still intense because he still has 3 laps to go to keep this car under him.
Yeah, and he needs to keep the pressure on. Anything can happen. We've seen these races lost on the final lap. It certainly happens with mechanical issues, running afoul of a back marker.
Yeah.
So it can happen. And I'll tell you what, Sanders is closing back up on Scotty B. White. It looked like Scotty B was going to be able to run away from him, but Sanders has hung in there, and I think he might be able to make a race of this for that final step on the podium.
This Viper is about 200 pounds heavier by minimum weight for the class than the Corvette behind it. So Scotty B. White there in the Viper has a little bit more car to manage in both horsepower and weight than the lighter Corvette. The Corvette maybe seems kind of big, but it is fairly light for the class. And you can see both of them absolutely on it. Lots of wiggles out of those cars as we cut back to this battle between the teammates, the fall line cars, M2 versus M3. And they just can't separate from each other.
Yeah, Nathan Martin and Joe Koenig in that order. Martin in the 146, Koenig in the 70. And lurking right there in the silver Porsche is Alan Kossoff. As this battle for 7th, 8th, and 9th has been one of the best all race long. One of the few battles that has stayed together, as the rest of these drivers have kind of run away from each other.
Don't forget, Kossoff in the Porsche is the fastest of these 3 cars. He's just got to get by them to maximize his speed. He's slowed down by about 2 seconds now that he's caught these drivers and just can't find a way by. I also wanted to point out Charlie Peter at this point in the race is actually faster than the leader, Kurt Rezzetano. His problem is the 12-second gap between the 2 of them.
Ooh, side by side. It looks like Koenig went wide at the exit of 6A. And I thought that was going to open the door for Kossoff, but not quite. In fact, it kind of energized Koenig. He's now right on the back of Martin.
We've seen that dirt on the outside of turn 6A bite other cars, so I'm glad he was able to keep it pointed the right way. Just looks dramatic when he spits that dirt cloud into the air. You can see the 146 is just a cork in the bottle at this point. Nathan Martin holding everybody up in the corners, but then rockets away on the straightaways. And, I mean, if I could have that balance, that's the one I'd take. I wouldn't want to be Kossoff stuck at the back, that's for sure.
It's always best to have a car that handles well on the straightaways.
Exactly.
They've got a slower car in front of them as they work their way. Oh, Kossoff makes a lunge down to the inside of turn 13. Has to take it to the brakes, and he touches Koenig, and around he goes. Kossoff stuffed it down to the inside. Koenig did not give him racing room, to be fair. And Koenig stands to lose another position. Michael Levine coming by, and oh, Koenig almost pulled out right in front of Levine as he got a little too heavy on the throttle. Replay coming up. Yep, I think there was a little touch there, maybe.
Definitely a touch, but maybe a little bit of impatience from Kossoff, I have to say. He lunged pretty late, didn't have a lot of overlap, and I think he might have just been getting frustrated and impatient with trying to get by those two BMWs, knowing that in the corner is a place he could do it. Unfortunately for the number 70 of Joe Koenig, that's going to end up with a spin and now getting passed for position again to drop him outside of the top 10. That's Matthew O'Toole in the yellow Porsche going by on the brakes for 10th.
Yep, that is a change in position. So Koenig losing a couple spots as Kossoff now up into that 8th spot. I don't know if he'll be able to hang on to it once the race is over, as we're working race lap 18, so a couple to go. There's Nathan Martin and Kossoff, and then the lapped Corvette behind them.
While all of that was unfolding, it looks like Scotty B. White and David Sanders have come pretty close together. They're within 7/10 of each other on the racetrack, and that's going to make the last 2 laps very exciting for the final podium spot here at the runoffs. There's a bronze medal on the line, and those two haven't completely sorted it out, but does David Sanders actually have the pace to get by the very fast Viper?
Well, we've got a couple laps left to sort that one out. Meanwhile, as we keep an eye on Alan Kossoff in the Porsche 996, currently in the 8th spot. Right in front of him by several car lengths is Nathan Martin.
Well, it looks like David Sanders might have had another mistake. He's dropped off, was again within 7/10 last time through, but last lap he only ran a 1:55 when he had been running 1:52 second lap times, and you see what that's done. He's nowhere near Scotty B. White anymore, and that might be the end of it. Look at how much tire he's used up this race. Goes for a big slide in turn 4. I think the 73 is on its last legs.
Yeah, he's having trouble keeping that one pointed the right direction. The rear end trying to step out. I think his rear tires may be just about kaput as he works through 6A and onto the Holman Straight. Right out to the outside once again, but Scotty B. White clinging to the final step on the podium. That would be his 6th top 3 in his 34 runoff starts.
And any pressure Scotty B. White was feeling before, there certainly was some, has fizzled just a little bit, but he's got to stay on top of it because it's only one mistake away from him having another issue similar.
Meanwhile, at the front, Kurt Rezzetano continues to drive away from the field to the tune of some 13 seconds as he sees the white flag. He just needs to keep that Mustang pointed the right direction for another 2.5 miles, and he will notch yet another championship. It'll be number 3 for him, but his first since 2016 back at Mid-Ohio.
And that will feel great to have broken that streak. He's been in the class ever since, for the most part, has come up very close a number of times, but hasn't actually had one come through for him. I think he was actually leading last year before a mechanical failure might have taken him out, if memory serves. But then Charlie Peter behind the number 66. Look at it, still dramatic, but he's lonely on the racetrack, 13 seconds behind Kurt Rezzetano, and another 13 ahead of Scotty B. White.
Yeah, Charlie Peter looking for his second place in a row on his 2nd runoff start. So he's kind of stuck in 2nd at the moment, but you know, that's nothing to be ashamed of. 2nd place finish at the runoffs is a pretty big deal. If you can't win, that's the next best thing.
It sure is. That was a massive flat slide while we were watching Charlie Peter go into turn 6, and then this battle still isn't quite done. I think David Sanders has a fire under him. He does not want to give up without a fight. And look at Scotty B. White makes a big mistake. The car goes for a push through the carousel at turn 6, and David Sanders has all of a sudden found himself there. They're only a car length apart.
He knows this is the final lap, and this is his final opportunity as they come onto the Holman straight. Scotty B better have his eyes on his mirrors, because that yellow Corvette is coming hard. As down the Holman straight into turn 7. Sanders goes wide, tries to get the maximum radius through this turn, carry the most mid-corner speed. Scotty B. White, though, that car riding the curbs with such a clarity, not in any trouble at all. But meanwhile, at the front, Kurt Rezzetano coming onto the front straightaway for the final time. A dominant victory from the pole for Kurt Rezzetano, and he will win the super sweep. Kurt Rezzetano taking the win. His third top spot gold medal. Here comes Charlie Peter finishing a strong second, well out in front of the battle for third. And here it is, Scotty B. White and Sanders in that 73 Corvette. White should have the advantage coming onto the straightaway, as that Viper has got plenty of straight line speed, and he will hold him off for the bronze medal. Sanders has to settle for 4th spot. Fifth spot, we should see Patrick Womack in that Z4. Here's another battle a little deeper in the field to 147 of Mikhail Butenko.
Now it actually looks like Aaron Kaplan in the 18 was able to pass on this last lap to get himself up into the 12th position over Butenko in that Mustang. So there's still some races happening a little further back in the field. Again, this is the battle for 12th, and they changed positions this lap.
Yeah, Kaplan had Butenko, excuse me, was out in front as they came across the line to see the white flag. Butenko able to got himself past, should we say, Kaplan able to take over that position. And if he can hold on to it in the run to the line. Just behind them, Andler Klatze, who had that spin, if you remember, in the 78. And he comes home in 14th position. Just behind him, Larry Brady in the 58 Corvette C5. But there's your winner, the 37 of Kurt Rezzetano, taking his 3rd gold medal, 6th top 5, 4th top 3, 5th top 3, I should say, and his first win in the class since back in 2016. So this one's going to feel pretty good, I'm sure.
And you have to wonder what could have been had both Mark Bowden and Tim Kesman been given the opportunity to challenge for this lead. Yes, it was a 13-second win for Kurt Rezzetano, but this race could have looked very different had those two cars survived turn 1 on lap 2.
Yeah, exactly right. Those were the contenders for sure. And with them not in the field, Rezzetano had a pretty easy go of it, taking nothing away from Charlie Peter. And nothing away from Patrick Womack in that Z4, the 120 car. Came home in 5th spot. It's a good run for him and the only Z4 in the field.
Yeah, from 16th again, that's just a great charge.
Yeah, absolutely. He's certainly going to be a front runner for the Sunoco Hard Charger. As they make their way into the pit lane for the final time, and they're heading down towards the pit recorder. There's Kurt Rezzetano coming into position. Hayward Wagner doing a great job giving these drivers a hand, getting the window netting down, and giving them an opportunity to get their helmet off before they have a talk. He'll also have a chance to talk to Charlie Peter and Scotty B. White. Scotty B. having a good run from 5th up into the final podium spot. Charlie Peter right where he started in 2nd spot. Sounds like Hayward's ready with our winner. Hayward?
It's been a long 5 years since we've had this conversation. How does it feel to come back to victory lane?
Oh, it feels amazing. I'm so glad that we got it done this year. Indy, I felt kind of owed me one. I brought a car here in 17 that I thought was going to do it, and I blew the motor in it, so kind of like last year. So I'm ecstatic. I can't say enough right now. A little worn out.
So a lot of times when you have a race like that where the leader checks out, everyone assumes it's easy. Everyone assumes that you're just out there cruising. How hard is it to stay focused? How hard is it to stay mistake-free and protect the championship?
Well, it's always really hard because you're worried about a late race caution. If you get a caution, you got to save something because this thing is big and heavy and it wears the tires out. So I was just trying to keep the tires on it while I was out there. And then around lap 9, I lost the power steering. So I was just fighting with that the rest of the race, just trying to keep the gap.
Well, an incredible, a very impressive drive with power steering, an incredible drive without it. Congratulations. Are you going to take a victory lap or your hands too tired?
No, I'm going to take a victory lap. I'll muscle it.
I thought you might. Congratulations.
Well, that certainly adds a bit of flavor to it. You know, muscling that big car around without power steering, you know how hard it is. If you've ever driven a car where the power steering fails, the steering effort is much heavier than if it didn't have power steering. So he really had to muscle it.
Especially a car from, I mean, this is a 2014, so it's not, it's meant to have power steering. You know, in the 80s when they weren't meant to have power steering, it's a little different, but he certainly worked for that one. You could see just how hard he had to work.
Hayward's got our silver and bronze medalists.
Charlie, congratulations on the silver.
Thank you.
It looked like you got a little bit of a gap and just had to maintain.
I did, yeah. I think I drove the tires off the thing in the very beginning trying to defend, and man, I was lucky to avoid that crash. I heard it, and then I saw it in my mirror, so I was very fortunate to avoid that. And coming home in second place is just like last year, and I was happy then, and I'm happy now.
Well, sometimes it's about the mistakes you don't make. Congratulations.
Exactly. Thank you. Thank you so much.
And let's find our third place finisher. I think he's still back here in the car. Guys, if you'll stay with me, I'm walking up to Scotty White. Scotty, you look a little worn out, buddy. You and I have waited a long time to have this conversation. How does it feel to come to the podium at the runoffs?
Well, it's good, man. It's glad to be back up here, and you know, it's happy to where the hell that is. It's cool to get a podium for Goodyear. What do you think about that? I like it, and yeah, that was a lot of fun. These guys are a bunch of great racers. So it was good.
Just rolling around in a drop top hot rod, aren't you?
Well, you know, it's all about looking pretty. You know that. You know that. You just got to look good.
All about the looks with Scotty. Congratulations on the bronze.
Thanks, Hayward. Thanks, Scotty. As Kurt Rezzetano, with a crew member holding the winner's checkered flag around the track for his celebratory victory lap, waving to the corner workers and the crowd. As we have the results, the unofficial results of our top 10, with Rezzetano taking the win by a commanding lead, 13.8 seconds over Charlie Peters, second for the second year in a row. Scotty B. White on the box for the first time since 2014. David Sanders gave him a good challenge right to the end. Patrick Womack in the Z4 finishing fifth. Brian LaCroix in the black Corvette taking the position over Nathan Martin at the end. Alan Kossoff being shown in eighth. Michael Levine came home in ninth. And Matthew O'Toole rounding out the top 10. Here are the highlights from this race, and it had a lot going on at the beginning as Rezzetano in the 66 of Charlie Peter getting the jump, but 4 wide behind them. And then here's the moment that really took out 2 of the main contenders. And then we had this moment with the 72 car finally making the pass after trying a couple times earlier, and then Kossoff getting into the back of Joe Koenig, but nobody had anything for Kurt Rezzetano, as despite a power steering failure, he brought it home. And that's the margin of victory for our third place runner, Scotty B. White, just in front of David Sanders in that Corvette. So once again, a great race for Touring 2, as the SCCA Runoffs brought to us by our friends at Mazda. We thank them for their sponsorship of our broadcast. My name's John Phippen, along with Tom O'Gorman, and down in the pit lane, Hayward Wagner. Thanks for being with us at the 58th running of the SCCA National Championship Runoffs at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Welcome to that magic realm. Between here and there, a no man's land, and everyone's land, where great expectations grow, and rewards are given to the swift, the perceptive, and the daring. Introducing the Mazda CX-30 Turbo with all-wheel drive. More power for your pursuit.